Something explosive is unfolding behind closed doors, and this time it isn't another tabloid whisper or some forgettable headline you simply scroll past. This is internal. This is deliberately controlled. This is deadly quiet. Because leaked emails are now pointing toward the shocking possibility that the very people who helped build Invictus alongside Prince Harry may already be mapping out exactly how to push him aside without anyone realizing until it's far too late. And once you notice the pattern, once you connect every piece of the timing, once you focus on what's quietly unfolding beneath that $55 million cloud hanging over everything, it stops feeling like coincidence and starts looking like a carefully orchestrated exit.
Triggering genuine concerns for this man's sanity. I think he's losing it.
If I was Invictus, I would just think, enough. When are we going to focus on what you're actually coming for? And what's going to be interesting is, and mark my words on this, is this now a private visit? Who's funding this visit? Because if they're being funded via that particular charity, one might suggest they're not getting their money's worth.
Prince Harry's total breakdown and break from reality has continued overnight, because not only is he breaking down in tears again during his holiday to Portugal, he has now leaked a private security document to Chris Ship of Woke ITV, which has been broadcast to the world. And the nutty thing about this is he is literally saying, I'm a terrorist target. Come and attack me. Come and attack my children.
She has such a bad reputation, and she needs that proximity to the royal family so that she can continue to play Meghan, Duchess of Sussex.
I've got a message for Harry and Meghan. No one in Britain gives a rat's backside whether you come or not. You guys are over.
That moment right there, that sinking feeling, isn't just about family anymore. It reflects everything Prince Harry is walking straight into right now. While the public stays distracted by reconciliation, high-profile visits, and polished appearances, something completely different is unfolding behind the scenes. Here's the reality. Emails don't leak by accident. They get written when people believe nobody is paying attention. And according to what insiders are quietly suggesting, those messages aren't emotional outbursts. They're calculated, strategic, cold, focused discussions about reputation management, future leadership alignment, and the most alarming phrase of all, long-term sustainability without dependency on a single figure. That's not the language of support. That's the language of replacement. Suddenly, the entire $55 million question becomes impossible to ignore, not because of one transaction, not because of one obvious scandal, but because of something even more dangerous: growing confusion, fading clarity. Questions continue piling up without real answers. And inside an organization built on veterans' trust and purpose, confusion is the one thing nobody can afford. Because once donors begin asking questions, governments begin pulling back, partners begin hesitating, the board doesn't respond emotionally, they respond surgically.
Excited by that. Then suddenly, last Friday into Saturday, they start saying, Harry says, oh, well, I've just found out effectively said, I just found out I'm not going to get armed police protection. That armed police protection I've been fighting in the courts to get for the last 2-3 years. In that case, I'm not going to bring the kids back, and I'm not bringing Meghan back. King, heartbroken, bewildered, distraught.
Look at that contrast for a second. Duty versus absence. Presence versus distance. Now apply that very same contrast to Invictus. While other key figures keep showing up, reinforcing stability and projecting confidence, Prince Harry's position feels more uncertain with every passing day. Legal pressure, relentless public scrutiny.
What Diana always wanted, she always wanted the spare to be there in support of the heir, yet he's turning it all into a nightmare, and what could have actually been a very lovely celebratory dinner.
That line wasn't a coincidence. It was a deliberate choice. And it fits perfectly here, because the board is facing a choice of its own: protect the founder or protect the institution. History has shown time and again that institutions always choose survival. Especially when money enters the picture, scrutiny keeps growing, and headlines stop celebrating impact and start feeding controversy. The $55 million figure, whether people fully understand it or not, has become a powerful symbol. It now represents every question people are beginning to ask.
Meghan and Harry is this endless battle of self-pity and victimhood and, oh, it's not going well and all of this sort of stuff, And now Harry, as we know, is still battling on, creating headlines.
Because once the narrative turns into an endless battle, headlines become painfully repetitive and controversy begins drowning out the real purpose. Organizations start panicking. Never in public, of course, because the biggest decisions are always made behind closed doors. And behind those doors, the language is already changing. Not explosive, not dramatic, just carefully chosen phrases like steady transition, evolution, and new phase. It doesn't sound like someone's being pushed aside. It sounds like progress. But read between the lines, and the destination is exactly the same. Gradual distance, quiet separation, eventual replacement. And here's the part nobody wants to admit out loud. This isn't happening because of one single mistake. It's happening because of years of accumulation. Every legal battle, every public clash, every unanswered question, every moment the spotlight drifts away from veterans and lands on personal drama. Piece by piece, it builds a case. Not a legal case, but a reputational one. And reputational cases don't require undeniable proof. They only need enough lingering doubt to make everyone deeply uncomfortable.
He's been turned down is because Ravik has intel that tells them that he's safe. There's no way that if they had any intelligence that stressed that he was in jeopardy or his wife or children were in jeopardy, there's no way they wouldn't provide that security. It's Harry's ego wanting what his brother.
Think about that pattern for a moment. Major decisions being reviewed, claims being challenged, evidence being examined, then quietly pushed aside. That exact same process now appears to be unfolding inside Invictus itself. Review, assess, decide. But what if the decision has already been made and simply hasn't been announced yet? Because here's the most unsettling possibility of all. Maybe the removal isn't something that's coming. Maybe it's already happening. Maybe those emails aren't debating if anymore. They're debating how. How to make it happen without backlash. How to protect the brand. How to keep Prince Harry from becoming the headline. Because the moment Harry becomes the story, the organization loses. So the strategy suddenly becomes obvious. Keep everything subtle. Keep everything gradual. Make it look like his own decision, even if it isn't. Meanwhile, the public narrative keeps falling apart, while internally everything may have already been settled. Once confidence begins slipping, trust starts fading, and key stakeholders hesitate, the board doesn't wait for perfect clarity. It moves before clarity ever arrives. That's how institutions survive. And that's exactly why these emails matter so much. They don't prove the ending. They suggest the ending is already being planned. If that's true, then every appearance Harry makes, every statement he gives, every move he takes may no longer be about strengthening his position at all. The deeper this story goes, the more unsettling it becomes, because what looks like outside pressure is beginning to resemble isolation from within. And that's exactly when power quietly changes hands without anyone needing to announce it. When the public story stops making sense, private consequences begin spreading. Eventually, people inside the organization start asking questions they never dared ask before. Not because they're disloyal, but because they're forced to. Once credibility is threatened, everything becomes vulnerable. That's exactly where Invictus now appears to stand, caught between protecting its founding figure and protecting the mission it was created to serve. Then the emails become even more revealing, because they stop focusing only on money or headlines. Instead, they begin circling something even more sensitive. The veterans, the core mission, the very reason Invictus exists. And the uncomfortable reality creeping into those conversations is that the spotlight is no longer shining on them. It's drifting away. It's shifting elsewhere. It's slowly being pulled toward something completely different. Why would anyone keep demanding more, pushing harder, escalating further if everything were truly stable? That's the same question quietly surfacing internally, only framed another way. Why is the narrative growing heavier? Why is the attention becoming louder? Why does every new development create more pressure instead of relief? Once that pattern is recognized, it refuses to stay contained. It spreads from boardrooms to sponsors, from sponsors to partners, and from partners to governments. Suddenly, the entire foundation begins feeling uncertain. That's when the financial side becomes impossible to ignore. Not because anyone has conclusively proven wrongdoing, but because perception itself becomes the real problem. When figures like $55 million keep appearing beside confusion, delays, and unanswered questions, they create a narrative no organization can comfortably carry forever. And that's the turning point. Once perception becomes risk, risk demands action. Not loud action, not dramatic action. Quiet, calculated action unfolding in carefully planned phases instead of public announcements. First, responsibilities quietly shift. Then appearances change. Next, representation slowly evolves. Before anyone realizes what's happening, the central figure is no longer truly central. They're simply still there. Then even that presence begins fading away. Constant headlines, endless pressure, relentless conflict don't just wear out the public. They exhaust the institution itself. Eventually, when an institution grows tired, it starts chasing stability, predictability, and control. Anything that feels secure and free from daily uncertainty. Right now, stability isn't what Prince Harry represents to the board. He represents unpredictability. And unpredictability